What's up, everyone? My name is Alan, founder and consultant at For Now Marketing, and welcome back to Liquid for Technical Marketers. Today, we're going to talk about the for loop, one of the most powerful tags in Liquid, and the last topic we'll discuss in the Liquid for Technical Marketer Proficient program. Let's get started. So, let's jump right into our definition. What exactly is a for loop? First of all, for loops are most often used with an array variable, so array data type, which we've gone over in the past. And think of for loops like a little helper that will go through every item inside the array and apply the same set of instructions to each item. So, say we have an array custom attribute for a list of users' favorite sports. And by using a for loop, we can go through each sport in this array and follow a set of instructions, whether it's rendering the sport's name or checking for a certain specific sport or any other commands like that. Let's break down the for loop syntax and see what it looks like in Braze. So before we head into Braze, let's look at the for loop syntax here so we can go over the different parts in detail and look at how it functions in Braze afterwards. So first, since for loop is a liquid tag, it always starts out with our tag syntax curly bracket percent symbol, followed by the word for, and you choose the name for our for loop variable. That's what this variable is called. It's called our for loop variable, which we chose the word sport in this case because we are looking through our custom attribute array of favorite sports. So just to clarify this portion, this for loop variable is simply a variable name. It's an arbitrary name. And that's how we'll actually reference the item itself inside the array. But we could have chosen any other word besides sport, like X. So for X in favorite sports, or for item in favorite sports, or for thing in favorite sports. We could have chosen any word, but typically we try to choose a variable name that fits the context of the array that we're working with. And since we are going through a list of our favorite sports, it made sense for us to use the word sport since every item in this list will be a sport. So we have for sport in our list of favorite sports, do this thing. And since we chose our variable name to be sport, every time we want to access the value of the item itself, we reference the value by using the sport variable surrounded by the brackets. And just like that. And when the for loop is done going through cycling through the first item, it'll move on to the next item, go through the same set of instructions. And when it's finished, it'll go to the next item and so on and so forth until we've gone through every single item in the for loop. So in English, in plain English, this is saying go through every item inside our array favorite sports. For every item in our favorite sports, do the following commands. And then the commands are everything between the for and n4 tags. And once again, always remember to close each for loop with our n4 tag, very similar to how we remember to close every if tag with an end if tag. So in our case, we are simply rendering the name of the sport value itself in our for loop. And let's take a look at this same example in Braze. So here we are in Braze, and before we actually jump into our code, we've actually added a little comment section here. So if you use the comment tag, everything in between the common and end comment tag become commented out, meaning there's no functional impact from this code right here, all these codes right here. So when Liquid runs, it'll pretty much ignore this portion. And I've included what the array favorite sports looks like just so we can visualize the data that we're going through, which in our case is basketball, pickleball, and running. So there's 3 items in our list of favorite sports. But please note that this is not actually how you write arrays in Liquid, and this is simply a visualization guide. Also, it's really nice and convenient that Braze makes all the comment tag this light green color, so it's easy to tell that these lines are actually comments. And you see another example of where you need to use the end comment tag. So just like end4 or end if, Liquid also has end comment. Okay, time to jump into the Liquid. So here we have the exact same example. And if we click test and search for our user, Liquid for Technical Marketer, -1234, you see the 3 sports inside our favorite sports array get rendered: basketball, pickleball, and running. And that was the same code that we went over in our slides. Maybe we want to add a little bit of context. So we can actually add the words favorite sport colon space and then render the sport variable. And so if we add this in front of each item, this portion right here will be added in front of the item for each cycle of the loop. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So we have favorite sport, basketball, second time around, favorite sport, pickleball, last time around, favorite sport, running. Let's throw in a slightly more interesting for loop. So say that we're specifically looking for the sport pickleball. And if the favorite sport is in fact pickleball, then we have a special message to display. What we can do is we can actually throw in a conditional statement to check if the sport variable is equal to pickleball that lives inside this for loop. So that looks something like if sport, so the sport that we're referencing in our favorite sports array, if sport is equal to, in quotes, pickleball, because we are using a string, close that if, we can say something like, awesome, our favorite sport is also pickleball. And then let's go ahead and close that end if tag. So now, as the for loop goes through each item, it'll still follow all the instructions between the for and for tag, so everything right here. But now the instructions tell the liquid to only do something if the item value equals pickleball. So let's take a look. So we're going to go through a first cycle of the favorite sports array, and the first sport is equal to basketball. Is sport equal to pickleball? No, our sport is equal to basketball. So this if statement is not going to run. That takes us to the end of our for loop. We move on to the next one. Our next sport value is equal to pickleball. And then our liquid says, if sports equal to pickleball. That is correct. So we are going to display this message on our second cycle. And then we're done. Move on to the last item, which is equal to running. So sport is equal to running for this last cycle. If sport equals pickleball, that is not correct. Sport is equal to running this time. This message will not display. And then the if statement will be over, and that takes us to the end of our for loop. So our for loop is over. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Let's go ahead and search our user who has the values. And it says, awesome, our favorite sport is also pickleball. And actually, let's make that a little bit more dynamic. Let's, instead of writing out the actual word pickleball, let's insert the sport name. So if sport is equal to pickleball, it'll say, awesome, our favorite sport is also the sport pickleball. And just as a final reminder, our for loop will still go through every single item in our array, even if the sport is not equal to pickleball. And even if we've already found our sport pickleball that we're looking for, it'll still keep going until the end of the for loop. So the for loop will always go through every item in the array. That's it for today. Thank you for watching and see you next time.